Welcome. Billions of people throughout history have adhered to religious beliefs. These beliefs posit sin as a barrier between humanity and God. Yet, these billions think that this word God is referring to the real creator who is unknowable. Yet, this word refers to God as a deity, whether it's Allah, whether it's Yahweh, whether it's Elohim, is a deity, a god or a goddess in a polytheistic religion. So Islam, Judaism, Christianity and many others are polytheistic religions. You can watch our video that proves beyond any reasonable doubt that these religions claim to be monotheistic, but they are polytheistic. So while the number of people and adherents who follow this kind of thinking about sin can be put around 75% of the world population, it is clear that they also think that this God, their God, provided a solution to the problem of sin. But what's the real meaning of sin? What is sin? Where did sin come from? Are you living in sin? Let's think about this and consider this in the following agenda. The primary words for sin in our Bantu languages include in Kiswahili, Dambi in Amharic, Hatiati in Hausa, Zunubi in Yoruba, Ihse in Zulu, Ububi in Koza, Imbi in Shona, Chivi, Chitazo or Mashati, in Sindebele, Ububi, in Tswana Sebe, in Venda, Chivi, in Soto, Sebe, in Northern Soto, Sebe again, in Songa, Kishoro, in Chichewa, Ushimo, and in Hamid, Hisfet. There are other synonyms of sin in English like transgression, evil, wrongdoing, iniquity, trespass, crime, err, commit, delinquency, guilt, blame, fault, offense, or stumble. But we want to consider the theological perspective of sin, philosophical perspective of sin, African spirituality, as well as sin and the unknowable creator, which is very, very foundational and fundamental in our goal to understand with origins and the definition of sin. And then lastly, who saves you from sin? We invite you to subscribe to our channel to explore what this world has done with this small little word, sin. We invite you to explore with us using a Bantu University, study Bantu foundations and mysteries as we go into the depths and the morality of our faith and the fears that have been placed into our consciousness on this earth. In this video, we dive into the complex and often misunderstood concept of sin. What is the real meaning of sin and how it has evolved over time? We ask you to join us as we examine the historical, religious, and philosophical perspectives on sin and discover how it continues to shape our understanding of right and wrong today. From a biblical perspective and its interpretations to modern day application, let's get ready to challenge our assumptions and to gain a deeper understanding of this profound and thought-provoking little small word that has crept into our vocabulary. So the most common definition of a sin comes from the Bible, 1 John 3:4, where it says sin is the breaking of God's law. Which God is spoken of here is a deity. As we have already indicated, very few people understand that. So this deity has 613 mitzvot, commandments, and the primary Hebrew word for sin is shata or chakashata. It carries the idea of missing the mark or falling short of God's standard. Now, the God spoken of in the Bible is the God El, head of the Elohim pantheon, whether you call him Yahweh, whether you call him El Shaddai, El Elyon, Elohim, or whatever. I am Yahweh. This God El is the chief of God of the Canaanite pantheon. He is also the God of the Bible. In Arabic, he is known as Allah. Currently, he is worshipped by over 75% of human population on the earth. Yahweh of Samaria and Asherah, they used to pray that way. But the Bible preserves one universal truth. You find that universal truth in the book of Micah 4 verse 5. It says, all the nations may walk in the name of their gods. We will, the Israelites, walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. So this Lord our God in Hebrew is Yahweh Elohim and is a deity. That's clear proof. Let's show more evidence. If you read S. Smith's book, The Early History of God, Yahweh and the other deities in ancient Israel, forwarded by Patrick D. Miller, you find a lot of information about this deity. You can go to Exodus 34 verse 14, which says, for thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord whose name is jealous is a jealous God. This is clear that this God knew that there are other gods. So very, very, very important. Now, when you say the laws of God, you are actually saying in Hebrew, the laws of Yahweh. And Yahweh is the specific name of the God of Israel, a tribal God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He is not the creator of the limitless universe. Now, he has his laws that he has given to those that follow him. And when you disobey those laws, that's when you are committing sin. But we know that these laws, often referred to in the Torah or the law of Moses, were not crafted by Moses or by the Israelites or by this same God. But he modified the laws that already existed, that had been given to us Africans by our primordial goddess Ma'at. So it is very important that when you define sin now, it depends with what you actually know, your knowledge level, because you might be defining it wrongly. In the Greek, sin is hamartia, which means missing the mark. It also carries the meaning. We often associate with the moral failure or a mistake and a falling short of God's perfect standard. And this God in the New Testament is Jesus. And we know the history of Jesus, that he never lived. So it's a God created by those that created Jesus. And when it comes to the definition of sin as read in 1 John 3:4 and his laws, Paul in Romans 5:13 says, for sin was in the world before the law was given. So how was it sin? That's a very interesting point. Whether he is referring to the laws of Moses or whether he's referring to the Noahide laws, nobody knows. So that's confusion. But what we want to look at are the primordial gods, because we know that the concept of whether sin predates law, meaning that this God created sin, because in deeply philosophical and theological questions there must be a violation of something, and that something is a spiritual tradition, it's a belief system. And we want to explore this concept and to look at the real meaning of sin. Let's look at the theological perspective. In so-called monotheistic traditions, which are not monotheistic, God is considered as creator of all things. This raises the question that if God created everything, he also created sin, because all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Now, did God create sin? The idea they give that God did not create sin falters when you realize that in their narratives he allowed for the possibility of sin by granting free will and also the opportunities for sin to occur. So when you look at the story of Adam and Eve and their disobedience in the Garden of Eden, we realize that we are told that they are the ones that introduced sin into the world. But they are not, because the act of rebellion is not itself labeled as sin. That's why it's called rebellion. The two trees in the Garden of Eden, one of them was the tree of sin. It was placed in the garden by this God Elohim, who is not a primordial deity. Now, let's look at the philosophical perspective. From a philosophical perspective and standpoint, sin can be examined through concepts of duality, morality, and causation. Some philosophies propose that sin or evil exists to provide contrast to goodness, because without sin, concepts like virtue or virtue, repentance, and forgiveness might not have meaning. Very interesting. If a free will is a divine gift, the possibility of sin is already an inherent risk given by that which has given you that free will. The ability to choose implies the ability to err, and some can argue that this is necessary, but we are saying for genuine experience and growth, these explanations do not meet the mark. Let's look at the African spirituality perspective. Sin is often reframed as disharmony or imbalance, because what is known is that the cosmos is seen in African spirituality through the governance of principles and the harmony, and also their reciprocity. Actions, whether by humans or by anything else, will disrupt this balance or natural balance. And those actions are not inherently sinful themselves, because the potential occurs through individuals and communities as they stray from alignment and from divine laws or ancestral laws. So there's no sin, only misalignment. Very, very interesting. There are energies in creation. Now, if all energies, including destructive forces, arise from the creator, then what we call sin might be a misuse or misunderstanding of those energies or purposes of that creator. Not that sin is created, but that it emerges when beings act out of ignorance, ego, or disconnection from the divine flow. Very interesting. But we still need something more. We need something with power. Let's look from the perspective of Maarifado Family Network. Because Maarifado Family Network introduces the concept of the unknowable creator. The creator who is beyond duality. Now, this is a refinement of the African perspective on sin. The creator is beyond duality, is unknowable. The creator is not a spirit or a being like the Christian God or any other gods. I believe also even our ancestors, many of them, those that were not in mysteries, would say the creator was a spirit. Right? Now, the unknowable creator who is beyond infinity is formless, is beyond human contract and understanding of good and evil, sin and righteousness. Sin as a concept is a limitation of the human mind and human action or natural action when it attempts to impose its moral standard and its categories into the boundless. So you can sin against God, you can sin against Allah, against Jesus, against ancestors, against nature, against yourself, against parents, against the Torah, against Mahati, against almost anything. But you can never, never, never sin against the real creator. You can read our book, Free from God, to discover the importance of all this. Let's look at the emergence of disharmony. And in so doing, we look at who saves you from sin. In all, from what we have understood and what we have explained in many videos, all potential and all possibilities, the waters of union, the quantum soup, is perceived and is understood. And what is known from that as sin is not really a sin. It's that which self-generates, and the action of those gods that self-generated themselves in the waters of union as negative gods. Apple Piper and Shatter are the clearest examples. So our focus today should be not on punishment, accusation, pointing fingers, but on restoring our harmony with the good gods and deities, because we have the power ourselves to either create sin via the negative gods or do good via the positive gods. This is very, very important, because the waters of union, from timelessness and spacelessness, infinity, right up to pre-creation, saw the emergence of the creating deities that self-generated both good and evil deities at the same time, simultaneously. And then the creation of many universes, including ours and our world, was found by the ancestors, that our ancestors created us 78 trillion years ago. Then the differentiation of beings or humans occurred about 3.5 billion years ago, and the gods started to rule on the earth. And eventually, about 6,500 years ago, Shatter rose up and introduced evil in a manner and in a way that has affected our current cycle. And we are just about to return back to the waters of primeval waters, the waters of Nyunyu. And this is where we say you must be transformed in this life by understanding these things, so that you escape the big wheel in your current life. So whether sin is created or was created, whether the nature of your God, Yahweh Elohim, is a deity, when you read our book, Free from God, you understand this very, very clearly. And then you will understand that sin is reframed as a misunderstanding of the cosmos and cosmic balance within you. And when you start to restore harmony rather than assign blame, then you can start to understand the real meaning of sin. You can write to us to get Maarifado Family Network a mission statement. Very, very powerful statement, because we know that at the heart of Maarifado Family Network is a profound calling to nurture, celebrate, and share the ancient wisdom of original melanin-dominant African spirituality. We know that out of the nurturing waters of Nyunyu, the quantum soup of animism, the gods self-generated and created the very essence of existence and divine truths, or rather first principles that shape creation, and the cosmic forces that guides us all. It goes on to explain in detail what it all stands for. Now, are you a sinner? The answer depends on 3 parameters: who and what is God to you, and your understanding of the waters of Nyunyu, and last but not least, what's the real meaning of sin. In this video, the answers are clear, have been given. You can actually go home with answers. If you want to learn more, and if you say, no, I didn't really grasp this, do not hesitate to send us an email on johnny@maarifado.org. Now it's .org, no longer .com. Thank you for connecting to our channel, Hamid Iburu Ethics YouTube channel, and studying with us in Afro Salvation Mysteries. You can enroll to study Bantu Foundations in matters of the afterlife. Subscribe, share, like our video. Till we meet again, stay well. Remember, we have the authority and the power when you understand the real meaning of sin to conquer sin. Amen.